Rouben, host of Yoga Revealed podcast, and my newly discovered brother that I didn't know I had. Thank you so much for joining me on Podcast Junkies.
Hey man, I'm grateful to be here and grateful to all the beautiful people that are listening.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's crazy when you think about all the different ways that people connect and how you can meet someone that, you know, a month ago or 2 months ago you didn't even know existed. And so it's been crazy because I've mentioned it a couple times on this podcast. I've talked about it on my socials. So people know that I went to a retreat, Sacred Sons retreat, which was, everyone had asked me how it went. I said it was transformational. Definitely has shifted something in me. Like they say, brotherhood is the medicine. I didn't realize that I needed some of that. So I was really apprehensive about going. Obviously, I'm super glad I did. I'm signed up now. So for Convergence 8 in
I'll
Los
see you
Angeles,
there.
which is awesome. It's going to be 300 of us there. So that's kind of the energy there is going to be off the hook. So, we're going to meander all over the place and obviously get into what you're doing creatively as well. But, talk a little bit about your Sacred Sons journey, because I know you've been with the organization for a while and I know you care a lot about the work that you're doing.
I really do. Thank you, Harry. And it was amazing to witness you experience your own breakthroughs.
Yeah.
I think that right there, it's like to be witnessed into witness is so special. And it is just something in our quote unquote society that we just don't see day to day, day in, day out, the hustle, the grind, the monotonous things that we quote unquote have to do.
Yeah.
But then when we choose to show up in a place like Sacred Sons for, if you're a man or if you're a woman and you know a man, the podcast to send to that man for at least the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Dove right in. I did a 2-day immersion and then I did their online training program and I decided to go to this EMX where you and I met, embodied masculine agreements. And, there's 3 pillars that we honor there. It's confrontation,
Yeah.
it's connection, it's celebration. And to me, those 3 pillars, when a man is embodying confrontation, connection, celebration, we are connected to our leadership. We are embodying what it is to be a wholesome man, honoring the hardships, the joys, the intensities, the excitements of life.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a lot about like the excitements. But let me just share the practical application of what Sacred Sons has taught me.
Okay.
Maybe you've heard the quote from Ram Dass: if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. I got back from a family reunion and I want to be mindful and not share personal stories of others,
Sure.
just honor that confidentiality. But let's just say that 2 people who have raised me from boyhood into being a 32-year-old man, their marriage was failing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of loveless. And we're sitting at dinner and I had what we call a charge clearing. And I was able to hold a facilitation for 2 people that I love, that have known me my entire life since day one.
Yeah.
Really. And I helped them understand what the other person was saying because it was not connecting for them to. And at the end of that, weeks later, a difference has been made and they're seemingly walking towards more of a loving marriage rather than a loveless marriage. And then the next day I shared words with my father, which I know that you could relate to this, that I have been wanting to share with him for 6 years, but didn't have the gusto or the courage or the words or the heart empathy to share with him. And that was all real time from applying what Sacred Sons has taught me. It's like when we can take the work and do our family, that's when we know we're on the right path. And so I'm excited. I'll be seeing you at Convergence 8. I got a Colorado EMX coming up in a few weeks. I'm going to go to Maui Mana and connect on Maui with some incredible men. I mean, dude,
You're all in.
It's next level. So if you're a man, sacredsons.com, check it out.
It's interesting because I've been and I think a lot of the guys there, they talked about like watching the stuff on the fringes and, watching from the sidelines. And when you see some of the pictures and some of the videos, it's pretty intense and it's uncomfortable to watch and to think that you were ready for that. Cause you're just like, well, what are they doing there? Part of it looks like, is it put on? Is it real? Is it genuine? There's so many questions. And I think just as a guy, the ego kicks in and just like, oh, what am I going to learn from them? Or this is just a bunch of dudes with like feathers in their hair, just like, wilding out. It's like not for me. And I think there's something there for everyone. And I think what was interesting is that the range of the men we saw there, there's guys in there like, I'm 52, but there were guys older than me there, and I'm thinking about like Chendo, who came all the way from Puerto Rico, our brother Chendo, and Yosef, who came all the way from New York City, which is a funny story because he said that he bought tickets to the Washington event, and he told his kids, and he was excited that he was going to go, and his kids are like, Dad, this is Washington State, not Washington D.C. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm going anyway.
So funny.
And obviously Yosef was amazing. And Chendo's wife bought him the ticket. She's like, this is for you. You need to go to this. And she bought him a jacket there, which is so cute. So it's so funny, all the different ways. But I think when you see the breakthroughs and you see what guys are holding on to, and just even the ability to just let out a primal scream, like if you do that anywhere else, even if I were to do it here, my girlfriend would probably come running down, being like, is everything okay? And I think this ability to create this ability to release, which a lot of men have been holding in, is very important. It's very important. And I think, more guys need to hear about this and know that it's something that, you may try once and maybe that's all you need. But I think for me, it feels like something that I really want to make a part of my regular day-to-day life as long as I'm around.
I agree with you, man. I mean, it's the lone wolf syndrome that just doesn't work anymore. It could get us to a certain point, but it's not going to take us that far in the grand scheme of the collective.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something that a lot of men experience, is feeling around men who do care, care for you, who do care about your story and allowing your story to be heard, seen, and then transmuted, And that like ties in a lot to what I do, because like the transmutation, I am not my story. I am not my past limitations, and I am not my past things that have held me hostage, that I've held myself hostage to. I am not that, So I agree with you tenfold, man.
So where are you calling in from?
Checking in from Boulder, Colorado.
That was part of the exercises we had every morning in Sacred Sons, checking in. And I think it's important, this idea of checking in, not only location wise, but also heart wise. Like, what are you feeling in the moment? And I think for me, I've always been like a head centric, like thinking about logically, like what have to do that day. And I learned, the importance of like checking in from your heart, like what's your heart feeling? And it could change, 5 seconds from now. But I think recognizing that there's something that you're feeling in the moment. And a lot of times it's the first thing that comes to your mind. So I think that was a helpful reminder as well.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your creative journey, because you've been active with the podcast, but I want to know what happened, how that led up to it, and where, if you can think about where you started, did you start down like the 9 to 5 route and find out something was different, or, where were some of the early moments for you when you were kind of like realizing that there might be something different for your path?
Yeah. Thank you, Harry, for asking that question. And, I'd love to share the journey. And I would say that I have a different journey. It's been a challenge, and it has also been extremely revealing, where for me, I have always followed my heart. Like whatever my heart has wanted to do, I've pretty much done. I've never had a $9 to $5 an hour job outside of college. The last time I had a $1 an hour job was, I think I was 18 years old, and I'm 32. And I was working at GameStop in Louisville, Kentucky as a senior in high school, which is so funny. And, I've always been a little bit of an entrepreneur. In high school, I sold bed sheets, funny enough. Like my family and we bought a container of bed sheets, and I just was hustling them to everyone, teachers, bank tellers, gas station people. Like I would literally just have bed sheets in my backpack, and I would be hustling them. So funny.
Was it
I
thread count?
Come to college. Oh, they were 2,200 Egyptian thread count cotton, baby. You know it. Silk and cotton. It was awesome. They were good. All colors, all sizes. Very hilarious. And, when I came to college, I studied Chinese and Asian studies with a minor in business. And I soon realized, just like, man, this society thing is just like not for me. Like my other friends are like going down the pathways of being lawyers and doctors and real estate agents and like all this stuff. I was just like, that's just not me.
Yeah.
My best friend took me to a yoga class, and that yoga class at 19 years old completely changed my life.
Wow.
And I'll just say, fast forward 12 years to present day, 13 years, 10 yoga teacher trainings, a master's degree in traditions of yoga and meditation. I've studied yoga with thousands of people. I've taught yoga to thousands of people. I've traveled the world, and I've been able to invest almost 80 grand into my studies.
Mm.
And how did I make that happen? Right. I always found a way.
Yeah.
And it never really meant that I had a lot of financial security though. So in those first 5 years of teaching yoga full time, which was a struggle, but I was passionate. I was in college too. So it was like I was in college. I was very fortunate for my parents to walk away from college debt free. And, I was teaching 15, 20 classes a week, which made me enough money to like live life in college where my parentals were supporting me. And I'm
Yeah.
very fortunate for that. I do not take that for granted. And,
Yeah.
and I give thanks for that experience. But then once college graduated and I was trying to make it work and live within the means of how I wanted to live, I was like making 25 grand a year teaching yoga full time. And that's what most yoga teachers might make,
Wow.
which is a hard struggle, So it's
Yeah.
like for those who take yoga classes from their teacher, give them gratitude.
Yeah.
They are doing that out of seva, out of selfless service. It is not a money hustling thing unless there are two kind of individuals, the high level influencer
Sure.
or the person with seniority who's been teaching for decades, who I have studied with. And even then, there's still financial struggle for
Yeah.
someone like that. I know personally those people. And so one of those people, his name's Eddie Modestini. He's a yoga teacher. He's been teaching for 40 years. He saw the passion that I had for yoga and the passion that I had for selling things. I was just really good. If I'm passionate around something, I speak with this charisma and this excitement because I know the value. And I've always held that embodiment. In sales, it's not about transactional conversations. It's about transformational conversations. People don't buy my product. They buy me.
Yeah, of
They
course.
buy Harry. They
Yeah.
buy podcast junkies. They buy the value of what we are offering. And so Eddie was like, dude, I see you hustling this yoga and you're like making 40 bucks a class and it's like not working for you. And I found something.
Yeah.
You got to check it out. And so I checked it out. It was this organic superfoods company. It had been around for 30 years and 10, 12 years in the network marketing industry. I knew absolutely nothing about network marketing and I just gave it a shot. You would never know that I once suffered from cystic acne all over my face as a 26-year-old man, 32 today. And so within the first couple months of consuming these organic superfoods and detoxing glyphosate, if you're familiar with glyphosate, it's a nasty pesticide endorsed by Monsanto, and it's just a terrible carcinogen in our food collective of America. And so I started to detox these things from my body. My acne went away, and then I went into the business opportunity. And man, within 6 months of building my superfood network marketing business, I made more in 6 months than I did in 3 years
Wow.
of teaching yoga full time. And that's when I was like, wow, okay, there's like, let's tag in on this entrepreneurship journey. And so, I really started to put my head in and focus on mindset and the skill set of surrounding myself with 6 and 7 and 8-figure income earners in the network marketing industry. And then I also found these people who also care about spirituality and self-development. Money and spirituality can coexist in harmony and service to this planet. And I'm not someone who has hundred thousands of dollars in the bank, yet I live with so much freedom in my heart and in my mind. And I know how to ask for help. And I also know how to make business happen with individuals who are committed to growth and work, And so I share that whole journey because in the midst of it, that's when my podcast began. And that was a second income stream that happened right as I began my journey with Purium, the superfood company.
Just a quick pause there, because like when people think about some of these, what they call MLM companies, and people have like a bit skeptical sometimes because people have been burned with them. And me, I
Totally.
mean, I grew up in the 80s, and so my parents went to Amway. So like immediately, like my initial thought is like stuff like that. And so I'm wondering, yeah, I'm sure family members may have kind of guided you on or had advice for you on sort of that stuff. So talk a little bit about your discernment and your ability to figure out if this was the right deal for you, if this was genuine, if this is actually something that was going to allow you the freedom you were looking for and to grow your income too.
Great question. First off, I'll share the vulnerability of the story. So in 2017, on April 7th, that was my 26th birthday. My teacher, who, I've been studying yoga with this man for a year and a half at that point. He's 70 years old. I trust him. So it came from someone that I trust. And I was like, I'll try it. Like, why not? I've got acne. You say it'll help me. And you say there's an opportunity. I'm kind of struggling. I'm not really in a position to say no to things. So I'm open.
Yeah.
I've always been a yes man. I was just like, I'll try it. I'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
I also knew that, we still have this today. There's a 60-day money back guarantee, even if you eat everything. So I was like, cool. If I don't like it, I can get my money back.
Sure.
I'm not tripping out.
Sure.
And so I try it and I have an amazing experience. And so that's what I trusted, first off. Now, I knew nothing about MLM. I knew nothing about network marketing. But what I did know is that it's a pyramid scheme. What I didn't is that only the people at the top are making the money.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that quotations because, for instance, my yoga teacher, I make more money than he does in my network marketing business, even though he enrolled me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a myth. And then two, corporate America is the pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
I've always believed that, the cashier at Whole Foods is never going to make as much money as Jeff Bezos,
Yeah,
and,
of course.
the people who are selling Teslas are never going to make as much money as Elon.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the real pyramid. And so to me, I also began to realize, not all network marketing companies are made equally. I've been in this industry for 6 years. I've seen people, quote unquote, get burned. But to me, that's because this is an industry where you are paid by performance. If you're not performing, you're not doing, quote unquote, the work, creating conversations that are more transformational than transactional, you're not going to see that income and that's not going to feel good. And so that's why people would say, oh, well, that doesn't work. And I got burnt on that. I mean, I understand. But then I've also met people who sales don't bother them. Sales don't bother me, but I don't consider myself a salesman. I consider myself a value man. I bring value to the world. I bring value to my conversations. And that's the difference. And so I get that MLM trigger and like, I'm allergic to MLM and I understand. I have no judgment of people who are like, yeah, that's not for me. And I'm like, cool, that's okay. It's for me. And I like it. But I also have 5 other streams of income. I believe in multiple streams of income.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Most definitely. I think it's one of those things that as an entrepreneur, once you've tasted entrepreneurship and the freedom that comes with it, then you're open to other possibilities, partnerships, and collaborating with people. And some stuff, it's the entrepreneur journey. Like you fail a lot, you fall on your face, you spend money, thousands of dollars on stuff that you try and that didn't work. But I think, it's a common theme we've talked about here on the show, just this ability to get up faster and just kind of brush that dirt off your shoulders and be like, okay, that didn't work, that didn't work. And I think for me, I've been able to practice. And so it's made me more open to take more risks, and some of them pay off and some of them don't. But I think once you have it in your blood as an entrepreneur, it's not something that goes away.
Seriously. For me, man, I'm someone who in the height of COVID 2020, my superfood business, these are shelf stable organic superfoods. My business skyrocketed from 4 or 5 grand a month to 9, 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
I literally doubled. And then over the last year, as the pandemic has, started, we're out of COVID at this era at this point, I've watched that number drop down again to about that 0.5 point mark. And it's been so interesting to me because it's like, wow, I like tasted that freedom for a year and a half of higher level income for me. And then it dropped and it's like, wow, okay, I got to really check in with my skill set and my mindset. Like what's happening here? And it's been a huge self-development piece and it's been so rewarding. It really has.
So talk a little bit about your marketing journey, because it's obviously you've built up a pretty decent Instagram following, and then we'll ease our way into the podcast as well. But is this ability, and we met in person, obviously you were very like the energy level is off the charts. And so I think that comes through when people meet you, I'm assuming for the first time as well, how genuine you are and how giving you are. And so, I can sense your heart, and maybe it's because we spent 3 days in the woods together. But I think for the most part, that's who you are. So, like, how did you start to kind of piece this together, and then, talk about where you learned your marketing chops?
Yeah, honestly, man, I credit the heart that I have in my life to two things. One, yoga.
Okay.
Yoga and meditation, and sitting in the cavern of my heart, meaning in stillness,
Mm.
going to self develop, being on my yoga mat, being in meditation, and going inside and seeing what I feel. And sometimes it's dark and it's angry and it's sad, but to acknowledge those feelings, that's the truth
Yeah.
of the heart.
Yeah.
So it's like yoga and meditation, these practices that have helped me create an openness. And then two, psychedelics. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
psychonaut. I believe in them, and they've transformed my life. And what I will say as disclaimer, I'm not saying go do that.
Yeah.
However, I am saying educate yourself. Go watch on Netflix How to Change Your Mind.
Yeah.
If you haven't
Amazing,
seen that,
amazing
it's an
documentary. Yeah.
amazing documentary. And for me, at a young age, incredible documentary. At a young age, at 19, I really started to explore, and I had an ego death. I had a seizure. I had a transformational experience. And I remember that death of my life, waking up and thinking I was dead, full on. This is like the extremely quick story. I'm not even going into the story. I'm just telling you the aftermath
Yeah.
of it. I remember it all.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was so crazy. But I woke up that day from that seizure and I thought I was dead,
Interesting.
full on. It was a time when I was atheist, didn't believe in anything, didn't feel time in my life. At 19 years old, I had an awakening, and that awakening brought me gratitude for the fleeting gift that is life. Because as I said, on April 7th, I started my business. April 10th in 2017, my best friend died.
Wow.
And in that shift, I can link those twos of like, I woke up for the first time at 19 and I actually experienced the loss of a man that I spoke to every day.
Yeah.
And that is a part of the story of how I've been able to cultivate my marketing skills, because whenever you feel that moment of excitement, I've always been like, wow, okay, I got to like take it and run with it. I might literally be in the store. Like I'm that dude who might see someone picking something out and I will strike a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm so open to the conversation where like, I even heard one person in Whole Foods talking to someone about Vega. Don't mean to bash on a shitty product, but
Yeah.
it's not a great product. And then I just went up to her and started chatting. Didn't sell her on anything, but I started chatting and educating. I offered her my number and she took it.
That's funny. That's great.
I was like, text me if you want to hear more.
Yeah.
Put it in her, put all in her court. So, it's like, to me, the openness and excitement, it's like one of the four pillars of how I've created success. That fourth pillar, I won't go through all four, but the fourth one is always staying open. I'm always in recruit mode. I'm always in the sharing experience. If I can get out of my own way and just be knowing that I have something of value to share, it will be done. And I've honored that from the beginning of my journey, from yoga, from Purium, from Sacred Sons to, inviting people to things that I'm passionate about, whatever it is. It's just staying open, I
So
think that thing that holds a lot of people back.
So when did podcasting come on your radar?
So the podcast started in 2015, 2 years before I started my superfood business. I was in Costa Rica at Envision Music Festival, saw this beautiful Black influencer yogi man walking down the beach. And I was like, oh my God, I know who that is. I know who that is. I want to meet him.
Yeah.
So I do an extravagant yoga pose to catch his attention. And I do. And we become friends. And we take photos together by the beach in sunset. It was so iconic and cliche and hilarious and awesome. Alec, I see you. You took my yoga class. And, at that time I had 50, 60 people coming to my yoga class,
Nice.
full-time yoga teacher. And he was like, man, I've got this vision and I want to tell you about it. Let's start this podcast called the Yoga Journey Podcast. And we're going to interview all the well-known yoga teachers. and all the influencers and share their story. And it's funny because when I was trying to create the LLC, there was already a thing, Yoga Journey.
Okay.
So we were brainstorming names. And then I was like, how about Yoga Revealed? And he was like, boom, that's the name. And so we went on a mission for pretty much like a year and a half, 2 years, sometimes 6 episodes a month, but 3 minimum for 2 years straight. And we just crossed over like 450,000 downloads, 500,000 downloads, something like that. And it was interesting because, we were super slow to monetize because Andrew had his own things going on. I was really focused with Purium, but we were just like pumping out value and free content, free content, free content, free content. And then in 2022, it was like, okay, we have like 400,000 listeners. We need to like do something with. So we got a platform. We need to do something.
Yeah.
And so we created, it's called a 7-day yoga reset. You can go to yogarevealed.com right now, click 7-day yoga reset, pay what you want. Literally a pay what you want offering, 7 yoga classes, 8 meditations. And it's cool. Some people put $1 in. Some people put $100 in, and it just kind of flows, man. It's been really neat just to see what the yoga community wants to pay for pay what you want offering. That's funneling into 100 days of yoga, which we have almost completed. Asana, pranayama, breath work, lecture, meditations, visualizations, all high background, all recorded in Costa Rica. So, that was the podcast journey for me, man. I started this and I was sitting across from world-renowned yoga teachers.
Yeah.
Wisdom keepers have been teaching yoga for their entire lifetime,
Wow.
Younger than me, older than you, younger than you. It was incredible. It was such a special experience.
How did you think about the early days in terms of a format and, questions, prep, talk a little bit about the logistics of getting everything set up because it was obviously something you were doing for the first time.
Yeah, it's so funny, man. And I mean, when I first began, I would just use my computer and then I had a Yeti mic and I just plugged the nice little background in my room or their room. Our agreement do in-person interviews.
Oh,
Bring the
wow.
potency into present.
Yeah.
That was the time, it was 2017, we could do that. And so you think about it, it's like it's a yoga podcast. And so we would email yoga festivals and be like, hey, we started this podcast. Here's the first 20 people
Nice.
that have already been on it. Very significant names. We'd get free access. We'd go interview these teachers. It was so cool and very slowly. And so I had this journal and I had all the questions written down. I'm 26-ish at the time and I was not very confident in interviewing, but I'm confident in myself. And so I'm new to this. And so like I'm interviewing people and it's a great experience. And then, next thing I know, I've done like 80 interviews.
Wow.
And I'm like, questions of the person to go deeper into their story, right? And so that became so powerful for me because, I would listen to certain, I'm not going to name any names, but I've been listening to certain interviewers on podcasts that have like 1,000x more volume than I do.
Yeah.
And they interview the person and interrupt them like 80 times.
I hate that.
And I'm like, dude, will you shut up and like let your person talk? And so I really became good at listening, and listening is a skill that I can still be better at always. But in the interview section, I became masterful and quite exceptional at extracting.
So I want to kind of dive in a little bit there because I think it's so interesting, this idea of podcast hosts. And I think it may just be a personality thing because there's a popular, I've listened to Aubrey's podcast, which is a great show. But I was listening to one a couple of days, and I love his content, I love his guests, Aubrey Marcus. But there was one recent episode where he just kept interrupting and like not or adding to the conversation. But at some point, it's so funny because I was just really thinking about that. Like, am I supposed to be annoyed? It's his show; you can do whatever you want, right? Like, if I want to talk this whole thing, it's not pleasant for the guest if I'm just the only one talking. I'm assuming at some point. But I was so excited to hear this guest. And I think most people, when they see a guest on a show, it almost feels like you want to hear as much of that person as possible. And I think that's sort of what was like, I was just kind of both minds there. And I'm just like, I know you have a lot to add. And sometimes there's magic when two people get together and it's almost like they're both co-hosts. And then maybe that's a different vibe. But I think part of what you're speaking to is just this idea of like, you come for the guest and then like it gets sort of like taken over, or not taken over, but just it's too much of like the host chiming in with his feedback. And you've probably heard stuff that he said on so many previous episodes. So it's a weird one for me, but I definitely get what you're talking about.
Dude, and it's funny because that's literally who I was talking about. I'm like, bro, let your person talk. And like, yes, bring in concept, but like, don't just interrupt them mid-sentence.
Yeah.
I have deep, mad love and respect for Aubrey and what he's
Yeah.
doing in the world. I've never met him.
Yeah.
And I know he's making a
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I guess they each his own. And at some point, I imagine if enough of these conversations make their way out there, like it'll get to him. Cause I was almost tempted at some point to just like, great interview, except a little less of Aubrey would have been fine. But like, I think at some point, hopefully people close to him will give him that feedback. But have you felt like, how many episodes are you in now with the show?
I think we're like 132 or 128.
Yeah. Have you seen that arc of you as a host and your co-host? Like, have you seen the growth? Could you talk a little bit about what that's been for you, from episode one to where you are now?
Yeah, it has been an arc in the sense of when I first started, people would be like, wow, that was such a wonderful interview. I love the insight. I'm able to apply that into my own journey of being a yoga teacher, yoga student, how to deepen my practice. Wow. I also hearing your growth, Alec, like I hear newness coming out of you. I literally feel you more of a man in how you're embodying your leadership and who you are. It became about the episode, but then it also became about me. And I'm not saying that in a selfish, big up myself, brag way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying that in the sense of I received the mirror and reflection from other people of that I'm doing the work. And the podcast reflected that because when we launched our first program, 7 Day Reset, it totally scaled. It was so awesome. Like 1,000 people bought it in like a week or something. And all we did was post it on social media. Like that's all we did. And put it on an episode. And it was just like,
I think it's an important thing to talk about, especially for new podcasters. I think sometimes they get a little too excited about trying to monetize too quickly without growing that audience first. And it sounds like what you did was
mm,
a realization that you had to put in the time to grow that audience. In podcasting, they talk a lot about this idea of know, like, and trust. And it has to happen in that order. So the people have to know who you are, they have to like you and keep coming back. And then, in that key moment when they trust you, if and when you make an offer, you've built up that goodwill with them and you've added value to their lives and to if they keep coming back. So they know like they're in the right place. And so I think naturally they'll just assume like, well, if I'm already happy with the content that I've been hearing for all these years, then if the course is going to be anywhere close to the caliber of quality that like I'm used to with the show, then it'll end up being a no-brainer. And that's exactly what it ended up being.
so yeah, Harry, I totally feel you on that because to me, it's so unique that Yoga Revealed has been around for 5 years and we didn't try to sell anything.
Yeah.
We were just wanting to serve our communities. Keep in mind that I had my own income at the time and my co-partner had his own income at the time. So we weren't like, we need this to make money right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It just was about serving our communities. And I feel that is something that allowed our community to know, like, and trust us. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the program. Is it just like a 7-day course for people who are just getting started with yoga to learn the basics?
Exactly. It's so introductory. It's about yoga in the sense that, let's say someone is a little intimidated to go into a yoga studio because it's vulnerable. It's like, wow, there's a lot of body challenges, things that you might not know. It's just, I get it. I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I could not touch my toes at first when I first came to yoga. And so this is an opportunity to learn how to practice and security and safety of your home
Yeah.
while also being able to learn from three masterful people who know what they're doing and have been teaching for a decade plus, you know? It's an online virtual thing. So it's on a drip schedule. Do
Okay.
one day at a time for
Okay.
7 days. There's a yoga class and there's meditation. And then you got to keep it forever. Pay what you want. yogarevealed.com.
What platform are you using to deliver it?
Samcart.
Okay. Same. And so people just get dripped and they get they're watching a video.
Exactly. So they're
Okay.
watching a video, you practice along with it, and there's a online course function. It's kind of like Teachable,
Yeah.
but we chose Samcart.
Okay. Very cool. And so, and then you said that's going to be a lead into like a bigger program that people can sort of like upscale to.
Exactly. And so right now we are finishing the final production, editing our 100 days of yoga.
Nice.
So it takes 90 days to transform your life, to make a lifestyle, make a habit into a lifestyle, right? And so this is 100 days, 30-minute yoga practices, but there's a blend.
Yeah.
There's yoga asana practices, beginner to intermediate. There's meditations, stillness guided, self-guided meditations. And then there's visualizations, things to open up the mind and the third eye. And
Yeah.
then there's breathwork practices. And then there's lectures,
Okay.
lectures that are spanning through the 8 limbs of yoga,
Hmm.
different philosophical and concepts of yoga for the modern individual and how to bring more access into our lives,
Yeah.
get outside of the mundane.
I know it's been a long journey for you with the yoga and with the business and with the podcast, but if you had to look back, if you could describe what yoga, because it seems like the start and how this all got kicked off was through yoga. And I'm wondering if you've had a chance to kind of reflect and think about like the journey that you've been on and, how it came into your life and really like how it's transformed and opened up all these opportunities for you.
It's funny because when I was on my dog walk this morning, I was reflecting and I was like, wow, I've had a sitting meditation practice since 2015, sitting every day
Hmm.
for 20 to 40 minutes. And I was reflecting back when I started then, there was many things that I wanted in my life that I literally have now. I manifested these things into my life. And the journey of yoga has been this beautiful flow and pathway of learning. And I say this like in italicized, bold lettering. The journey has been learning to love the journey,
Yeah.
not the destination.
Mm.
Iconic quote that we've all heard.
Yeah.
And I feel like I am walking in that because it's funny. Now I have so many things that I've always wanted. And there's so much more that I'm also excited about manifesting and journeying into my life while maintaining all the gratitude for what I have right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. So, what's next in terms of like growth as you think about the podcast and what you're doing with the growth of your channel as well? Do you think about these things from a roadmap perspective or do you, as opportunities present themselves? Like, how do you think about this, with your entrepreneur hat? Like, how you think about what this is going to look like 12 months from now?
Yeah, so really by within the next 90 days, we're going to have the 100 days of yoga launched. And the aim would be for 90 days launching that and marketing that, scaling that. So then so the next 90 days is getting that complete and then 90 days of it being live. And then the next 90 days, 3 quarters from now would be funneling into a live retreat where the
Oh,
people who
nice.
buy the 100 days of yoga go through it, join us on a live retreat. So that's where my hat is looking towards.
Where would that retreat be?
I'm not too sure yet. There's many options upon the world. There's my business partner has great connections all over the planet. So
Yes.
really it's kind of like whatever connection he's got that is alive and well and financially is sound and exciting and feasible for people. That's probably what would be the next best.
Well, I'm probably going to sign up because I'm definitely like coming out of the Sacred Sons experience. One of the first things that we were reminded of was the importance of taking care of our vessel, our body, and thankfully I'm now in a place that has some like old school weights in here. So I actually just worked out this morning, you know, just hitting the weights and pumping some iron, and just this idea of as we get older, muscles atrophy and you lose muscle mass and all the things that you read about. So just kind of conscious of that, but always looking for ways to up level. So one thing that I've done for off and on. I had a short Kundalini yoga practice when I lived in LA, and I was going once a week to that, which was really nice. And so it's hard here to find opportunities for that. So seems like the time is right to kind of dip my toe back in there again. So I'll definitely be checking out the 7-day class.
I love it, man. I can't wait to hear what you think, and yeah, I'd love to hear.
So talk a little bit about the opportunities that have opened up from a networking perspective, connection perspective. I'm a big fan of, podcasting since 2014. I host 2 shows, and I've seen firsthand the ability of creating what I call your virtual stage. And because normally if you try to have a conversation with folks of certain high caliber, if you just say, hey, can I pick your brain or can we grab some coffee? Everyone knows that's code for can I get some free consulting? But it's something magically happens when you have a vehicle like a podcast. And I'm wondering, I get the sense that you've experienced that firsthand. And I want to remind the listener of the power that is, the podcast, if you are intentionally focused on the type of experience you want to have and who you want to join you on this virtual stage. So how's that opened up doors for you?
Yeah, it's opened up such a massive door, man. I mean, let me just share the biggest impacts that it brought for me. In 2016, there was a festival in Boulder, Colorado called Hanuman Festival. All of the world's largest senior yoga teachers were there. And so I ended up interviewing literally every single teacher. And there was one teacher that when he was speaking, tears started flowing from my eyes. And I knew immediately, oh my God, this man is my teacher.
Wow.
And on that episode, I don't know what number it is, but it was in 2016. And it was one of the you there. He said, yeah. I was like, well, for the listeners who are curious, because I was curious, when's your next training? And he was like, in 3 months from now, in October, in Maui. And I was like, cool. The next day, I sent him money. I bought my plane tickets, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm coming to Maui. And then from there, he invited me to live in India with him
Oh
for
man.
3 months,
Wow.
studying yoga with him and his teacher. And I did that. And then I went traveling across the world for 3 months. And then I returned back to Maui to end the 6-month travel trip with Eddie Modestini. And then guess what? He picks me up from the airport and he looks at me and he goes, he's like 68 years old and 70
Yeah.
years old at
Yeah.
that time. He's like, dude, you look like you have gone through a washing machine. Here, drink this shake. And he hands me a Purium shake and I drink it.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, it was amazing. And that was the start of my network marketing
oh
business.
my God. That's an
So
amazing story.
the podcast opened up that journey for me. And I've been with my business for 6 years now, creating residual income. I've helped over 7,000 people transform their lives and their health through our superfoods on a holistic level, on a weight loss level, on a gut level, autoimmune issue, performance in the gym, all the things.
A couple of questions as we wrap up. And I think anyone who's been podcasting for a while can relate to some of the challenges that we go through as a podcaster. So I love to showcase them all here. I've had everything happen, as you can imagine, over the past 9 years. Dogs jumping into laps, mail, delivery men showing up during the day, are just crazy. The landscaper shows up. So I think we've seen it all and done it all. So, and it's an important reminder that we're all just human trying to figure this out. We're not fucking NPR here, and we just do what we can with the best of our situation. But I think the key is just getting that story to come through, which is what I'm always, that's my goal here. So what's something you've changed your mind about recently?
That men's work is not gay. And I use that word with
Yes.
respect. One of my best friends is gay and he's amazing. And I used to feel like men's work was woo woo and
Yeah.
spiritual bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Enough said there, I think. And if you want to learn more about what that means and secretsense.com, this is like a promo or a plug.
Yeah.
So it's just hilarious. What is the most misunderstood thing about you?
The most misunderstood thing about me is probably that some people may mistaken my passion for pressure.
Say more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that I speak with such great intensity sometimes, and I can ask incredible questions. And some people might just receive that as being like, no, I don't want the thing. Or like, no, I don't want to hear more about sacred sons. Or no, I don't want to hear more about Purium. Or no, I don't want to practice yoga. And I'll just ask questions. And that can be mistaken as me pressuring people where it really is just pure passion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see how that come through. But I think may get the wrong impression when they first meet you, but I think anyone spend any sort of time with you will get the impression they know, and from connecting with you, that you're everything that you do comes from the heart and that you're a genuine person. And I got to experience that firsthand. So I'll be the first one to vouch for you, brother. Don't worry about that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And again, I'm sorry for the listeners who are like, man, what is up with his audio? It's like, dude, there is some serious tech issues going on
Yeah,
today.
something in the
I don't know
field.
if he's in retrograde or something, but my dog's not barking, so that's good
That's
because
good.
he's sound bark dog alarm. But that's also the journey.
So, brother Alec, where is the best place for folks to learn more about what you got going on? There's a lot we covered here, so I'm sure people are going to want to at least dive in on one of the things that lit them up or that they resonated with.
The easiest way to find me is on Instagram at Alec Love Life Yoga. And from there, you can DM me. We can have a conversation. We can connect. Got all the links for all the things that I've spoken about right up there. And yeah, man, thank you for this. And again, thanks for those who are rolling with the audio waves, as we'll call them.
Yeah, we'll make it all sound pretty at the end, and it'll sound like it was just one perfectly sounded conversation. So I appreciate you taking the time to jump on here, sharing your story. Super inspiring, your podcasting journey, your entrepreneurial journey, your yoga journey. And I think the listeners are going to get a lot out of this and be inspired, hopefully to take action to make their lives better. And that's the reason I do these conversations, because I never know where they're going to go and what people's journeys are. And I like my listener to, as I'm discovering it at the same time. So I appreciate you sharing that journey with us. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you, probably being Convergence in LA.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be a part of your journey and your podcast as well. And grateful to be on your virtual stage, man. Truly, it's an honor.
Thanks, brother.